Since my childhood, she always told me she could hear something moving inside there. Someone laughing. "There's someone in there, Jackie. He's right there in the pipes. I can hear him at night moving around the house. He sneaks in through the pipes." She'd always whisper that part. My mom would come and get me by this point, grasp my shivering hands, and make my grandma swear not to tell me any more stories. Grandma would solemnly swear and wait until the next time I visited before telling it all over again. One night, when Grandma was sick, I visited her bedside late at night before going to my room, holding her hand while she slept. It was a gentle moment, and I think it may have helped me prepare for what would happen in the following weeks. The Sandman started to get to me, and I was about to head off to my room when Grandma opened her eyes and squeezed my hand hard. "He's downstairs, Jackie. He's right there." Something small I'd been ignoring as white noise hit me at that moment. Noises, small noises were coming from downstairs. Someone was snickering inside the dark house. A man's voice, a stranger in the house, just kept laughing. Something about that laugh. It was just too disturbing, too off for my mind to accept. So I just sat there by my grandmother's side, holding her hand until the noises stopped, much later in the night. After that night, I stopped staying over at Grandma's house. A few weeks after that, I was reading comic books when my parents told me to go outside with the dog while they had a talk. They looked serious. My mom would later tell me she cried during the talk, how she agreed she had to face reality and tell me about her mother, how she'd been missing for 2 days. But I was outside, looking for my dog. I was tracking his footsteps. They led me into the woods bordering on my house, to a pool of where the town sewage spewed out from an open, massive drainage pipe. It was here when I saw my dog, where I saw his mangy hair in the water, where I saw his still body floating in the lake. I jumped into that pool, not knowing whether or not it was toxic, not caring. Did he drown? That was all that was on my mind. Yelling and screaming, I waded through the gunk to that brown patch. As I got near him, I grasped his coat and pulled him up. The same second I dropped him, his head had been bitten off. I was standing waist deep in water, entirely paralyzed, when I saw her naked body, floating right at the mouth of the drainage pipe. My grandmother's face stared at me with cold, dead eyes. Her skin was covered in bite marks, human bite marks. Something had been chewing and gnawing on her. I was about to scream when the next sequence of events stole my voice. A hand came out of the pipe and grabbed her hair. It dragged her inside. A horrible chewing sound started, and then the giggling. Mom told me later that when I came to the house, drenched in waste but completely silent, it took me 6 hours to unclench my jaws and speak. I don't know that. I don't remember a lot of things from that time. The police found her remains in the pipe, little by little, but they never found all the bones. They told me it was a homeless man. They told me to try my best to forget it. They told me focusing on it would ruin my life, but I still hear it. Something moving in the pipes. At night, I dream of seeing something inside the pipe. Flesh and limb and skin, all squeezed together. And at the front, one twisted, grinning face. He. When there are noises at night, I keep tight in my bed. I don't shine any light into the dark anymore. I'm afraid of seeing that face from my dreams staring back at me. This story actually happened back when I was 18 years old and lived on my own. I came from a small town of around 1,000 people and moved to the city about 2 hours away for college. I wasn't naive due to my upbringing, but still very new to the whole "my neighbors are on the other side of the wall, not 2 miles away" thing. I'm around 5'3", bigger girl, but at the time of this story, I was more in shape and on the curvier side of being chubby, so I caught some unwanted attention. This is all important. My apartment was on the bad side of town. The road it was next to had some motels notorious for housing dealers, streetwalkers, addicts, etc., and a gas station that had to close at 9 p.m. because it got robbed so many times. My building was set up so that every time somebody walked by it on the road, you could see into the first 2 apartment windows if the blinds were open. I lived in apartment number 2. Even though I lived on my own, my cousin was in the military at the time and would come into the city one weekend out of the month for drills and such. Him and his buddies decided that staying at my place during those weekends was cheaper than a hotel, and it was pretty laid back, so it became a normal thing for me to have 4 or 5 army dudes crashing on my living room floor. These guys staying with me is the thing that saved my butt one night. One night, all the guys had gone out to party at a buddy's house except for my cousin. They left their cars at my complex, and my cuz was just going to pick them all up in the morning. Him and I stayed up and talked pretty late into the night, and I headed upstairs for bed around 1 a.m. About an hour later, there was a knock at my door. I thought maybe my cousin had locked himself out or something after he went to get a tobacco fix. So I came downstairs just to see my cousin sitting upright on the couch staring at my front door. My front door is at the foot of my stairs, so I jumped out of my skin when I heard another round of knocks landing on the door, louder this time. My cousin got up from the couch, and we just stood there in the darkness, listening. Nothing happened for a minute, and I started to think it was just one of my neighbor's friends who had a few too many and mixed up our apartment numbers, when another small knock came, followed by, "Hey, my car broke down up the road. I was wondering if I can get some help." It was a male's voice. He didn't sound creepy, but there was something about the situation that felt off. Neither me nor my cousin moved from where we were standing in the living room. My cousin whispered to not say anything, and I just nodded. "Come on, I just need a ride to my friend's house. It's not far away." We still said nothing. "Hello?" Another knock. At this point, my cousin had grabbed a baseball bat out of one of the other guy's duffel bag, something the guy kept on him since it was cheaper than a gun. He walked over to the window and was about to peek out the blinds when the guy outside knocked really hard. "Hey," he slams on the door. "I'm talking to you, girl." My blood fucking went cold. How in the hell did he know a girl lived here? He tried the doorknob, locked obviously, before slamming into the door again. "I just need some help with my car. Be a good girl and come and help me out here." My cousin stepped forward quickly to open the door, super mad at this point, and I stopped him. The guy slammed the door one more time before I heard a scraping weird noise. I quickly realized it was the sound of him sliding down to sit in front of the door. My cousin peeked out the blinds and just watches the guy sit there, head down in the darkness, not doing anything. I didn't want to go upstairs to get my phone because sometimes my stairs squeak really loudly and I didn't want the guy to hear movement inside. My cousin's phone was dead as hell, so calling the cops was out until it charged enough to turn on. About 10 minutes later, the dude stood up and knocked again. This time, my cousin threw the door open quickly and yelled, "It's 2 a.m. What do you want?" The guy froze. My cousin isn't a tall guy or anything, but for this stranger, expecting a young woman, seeing an angry, muscular, shirtless dude in army pants holding a baseball bat was probably somewhat intimidating. They stared at each other for a second. I was out of eyesight from the door and could only see my cousin, not the man. My cousin broke the silence. "Well, what you need, man?" The dude answered in a quiet voice, muttering something about having the wrong apartment and that he was sorry to disturb him before turning away quickly and walking out of the complex's driveway, up the road and out of sight. I'm glad my cousin stayed at my place instead of going out that night. I have no other explanation for how this guy knew a female lived there, besides that he must have seen me walk in or walk out of my place before and had this all planned. We didn't call the cops because it was too dark to see the guy's face under the hat that he was wearing. We couldn't give a really good description. I never got a knock on my door again for the next year or so I lived there. So, dude knocked on my door at 2 a.m. Glad you met my cousin and not me.